Well, we're looking at what could be a sizable winter storm from Kansas to Missouri to central and southern Illinois, central and southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, southern Ohio into West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, maybe even southeastern Pennsylvania and the southern half of New Jersey. We'll see how this all plays out because everything has been kind of nudging a little further north for you folks in New York City and points slightly north of there. So we're going to talk all about this. There's a lot going on tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And of course, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. How, you ask? Well, you can use the referral link to Amazon that is pinned on the top of the chat board or is on the descriptor to this podcast. It's very simple. You just use that link to do your Amazon shopping, and whatever you buy, Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin, and it doesn't cost you one dime out of your pocket. So we appreciate, because some of you have done it and have told me, and we're very thankful, and we appreciate those of you who support us simply by shopping on Amazon. Joe, we have a few. I'm suspecting tonight that we have some lurkers in the background. Some that I know of, some that I can only guess. You know, we all know that Taylor Swift watches this show religiously. Then, of course, there's the folks from WPC and SPC and NWS and Upton. The folks over at Mount Holly. There is also a certain person who we all know and love, Alan Casper, I think, is watching tonight, since I actually did get him the link. And,
Yeah,
our charm school graduate, Dave Tolerus, I think, may be lurking around also. So we have a lot of folks really paying close attention to this particular system. And it looks, I'm trying to rack
no,
my
actually,
brains.
actually, let's not have tunnel vision because for our viewers who are down in parts of southeast Pennsylvania and southern and central New Jersey, there's a smaller system tomorrow that may actually bring a few inches of the white stuff, depending upon where you happen to be. And then comes the system that everybody has been blah, 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 talking about for Monday. So we've actually got this. We might call this tomorrow 1A, and the one coming on Monday 1B, or I don't know, but there is actually some snow in the forecast. It's snowing outside right now where I am, Joe. This
Is
is
it
weird.
really? You got some,
Uh,
because there is some stuff on the radar because we've got all these upper troughs that it keeps swinging through. Every time one goes by, the temperatures take a little step down. You have some snowflakes falling where you are?
Not just snowflakes, but I mean the grass is white, and a little sliver of my driveway, my blacktop driveway, is coated with a little bit of snow. It's as of a little while ago, it was steady light snow, but believe it or not, through the snowflakes, I was able to see a couple of bright celestial objects, Jupiter and Venus. So it was kind of a strange scenario: steady light snow, whitening of the ground, and yet a couple of stars or planets that were visible through the snow. It won't last very long. It was probably something uh, relatively local, at least in my case, for this evening, and probably it'll clear out a bit in the coming hours.
You're not like Martin the Martian, are you, who wants to destroy the Earth so that so it won't obstruct his view of Venus?
Well, again, believe it or not, if you were outside through this steady light precipitation, you were able to see Jupiter and Venus through the overcast. It was a strange thing. I mean, the funny thing is that as I was stepping outside to take the dog out, the first thing that hit my eye was Venus. I said, "Oh, there's Venus." And then as I stepped out fully into the driveway or whatever, I said, "Wait a minute, it's snowing. It's snowing." And then when the light came on, we have one of those automatic motion sensor lights. When that popped on, my grass was white. So it must have been coming down at a pretty good clip to at least whiten the grass and even a little bit of my blacktop. So that was then. This is now. I'm going to make the assumption that a lot of this has now moved on by. But in any case, there you go.
All right. So nothing, from the standpoint of what we're looking at, now we've got another upper trough that's coming through tomorrow, as Joe pointed out, and it might whiten the ground in parts of South Jersey, Southeast Pennsylvania. There might even be a squall, a squall line of a line of snow squalls that will move on through in that area because of how this upper trough is setting up. But each one of these is actually doing the work of the block. Uh, each one that goes by, the temperatures go down a bit more, and we'll have cold air coming in for the weekend, which is going to be setting up this storm system. And normally, storms that come out of the southern plains usually make the left turn and go up the west side of the Appalachians. This is one of those times where it's going straight east. We don't see this kind of thing too often, and it makes for a very complicated forecast. It's actually the forecast for areas from Kansas to about West Virginia and into Virginia is relatively easy because they're going to deal with the strong primary low that's going to move straight east. It gets complicated when it gets to near the East Coast because now you have to deal with this big block that is sitting. You've got this large blocking storm over Newfoundland that's not going anywhere, and it's all about how that's this approaching low and the short wave that goes with it interacts with that block. And one of the things that we keep watching for is, does the part of the block that extends into eastern Canada, does it relax enough to allow this low to climb a little bit further to the north? And we've seen, the last since yesterday, it's been a little uneven in terms of the model runs, but the overall trend of the models has been to kind of nudge everything a little bit further to the north, nudge up some of the precip amounts that might fall in areas, say, just south of New York City and just north of Philadelphia from there south. So, I kind of think it's a little tenuous here as far as where this is all ultimately going to wind up because you and I know very well. We've seen situations like this before that may appear like they're going to go a certain way, and then something happens at the last minute to create a little bit of forecast havoc. So I'm a little bit on my heels tonight with regards to this because there's still a lot of moving parts.
Well, the other thing that I think should be mentioned, and especially when you look at the model guidance this far out, 3 to 4 days out of an event, is that you're absolutely right. It's going to be turning colder, and the atmosphere is going to be quite dry as well. And sometimes we see in this type of a pattern, Joe, precipitation that shows up on the models as snow, and you say, "Oh, look at that! There's a swath of that snow falling over New York and the Lower Hudson Valley and Long Island." But you may lose a lot of that if the air is too dry. We may have a case where the upper and middle parts of the atmosphere will not will allow snow to fall, but when it gets down to the lower levels of the atmosphere, the lower levels, there may be a shallow layer of dry air enough to cause that to evaporate before reaching the ground. So what I'm saying is we may have a period of virga, and if it's a long-term period of virga on Monday, especially all these people rooting for the snow to work its way into their area, you may lose out. I mean, not a lot, maybe, but the initial first hour, 2 or 3, may be all aloft and not necessarily getting down to the ground. You really can't tell this far in advance how much of that is going to be the victim of a low-level area of dry air. But that's one thing that you have to. And the other thing is that while the system is going to be rather potent in the nation's midsection, as it's coming eastward, as we saw yesterday, the block will help to is going to fight and try to suppress as much as it can, and in the process, you may actually see that area of precipitation diminish a bit. So what I'm saying, I'm still not really
There's a
impressed.
lot. There's a lot here. I mean, clearly, there's a lot here that needs to be, addressed.
But I've seen already on Facebook and a few other internet sites that have people who are on the verge of literally guaranteeing finally we're going to get a sizable
Oh,
snow.
yeah,
And
it's been out of control for the better part of 10 days now.
yeah,
and it, you know, I'd rather just ignore all of that because that's not why we're here. I mean, we always, you and I always try to put some sense into all of this.
And
And
If Alan is watching right now, many times watching his weathercasts in the 70s and 80s or whatever, he would, and in a situation like this, he would say, sometimes it's better to forecast with your head as opposed to forecasting with your heart. I mean, if you're a snow lover, you're looking at this and you're forecasting with your heart and saying, this could be it. Finally, we're going to get 3, 4, 5 inches. It's nice to think that, but sometimes you got to look at all of the parameters here. And right now, if you're hoping for a significant snow, especially if you live north of New York City, it may not come to pass. At least to wet your whistle, so to speak, or to break out your snowblower. But
right.
south of New York City, south of New York, especially central and South Jersey, and especially back west into Pennsylvania, yeah, there may very well be
And
some
down,
snow problems.
Baltimore, Washington, D.C. This is going to
Yeah,
be, this will be, it's good. Look, is this a major storm? No. I mean, is it going to be, 1 to 2 feet for the I-95 corridor? No. It is, it's a moderate event that's taking place. It'll be for snow lovers. It'll be a nice, decent snowfall. Is if you're lying in again, as you point out, there's going to be a sharp cutoff on the northern end of it. If you're lucky enough to get in the zone, you may wind up doing pretty well. And we're going to look at the swath of snow that is going to be falling from Kansas all the way to Virginia with this in a moment. Just want to say hi to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We will be here tomorrow night. Okay, so we'll be here tomorrow night, and we will probably be here Saturday night, assuming everything keeps going in the direction that it's going. So mark that down, and then of course we'll be here Sunday night on the onset of the event, and then after that's over with, you and I will probably jump out a window somewhere because we're going to be tired. So let's remember,
Ruben Fairchild will be happy. I know
yes,
that.
subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like tonight's show, by all means, hit the like button. We already have 73 likes, and we have one super chat. Hit the tip jar by Bogies Bees, Joe. Bogies Bees bangs the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Bogies Bees. Love that. Okay. The first winter storm watches are up. Uh, on the western end in Kansas, there are winter weather advisories for much of the central and eastern part of the state. It's winter storm watches also for southeast Nebraska, all of Missouri, except the very northeast corner and the southern part of the state, central and southern Illinois, central and southern Indiana into north central Kentucky. Now, there probably are going to be more, no, there are definitely going to be more winter storm watches and winter weather advisories that are going to be going up during tomorrow and into Saturday for this event. And you can see it's sort of this, it's an east-west area that we're talking about as opposed to a southwest to northeast area of heavier snow. Now there's winter weather advisories in western Pennsylvania down into West Virginia, and in the West Virginia mountains. We have winter storm warnings up. I saw some forecasts for 5 to 8 inches for places like Elkins, West Virginia, and a few of those areas that have some higher elevations to work in their favor. And so those areas are, this is due to this upper trough that's coming through tonight and for Friday and into Friday evening. We have lake effect snow warnings up for northwestern Pennsylvania and southwestern New York. We have lake effect snow warnings in north central New York as that machine just continues to roll. And winter storm warnings are up for much of north central and into northwestern Montana, with winter weather advisories surrounding that and extending west into Idaho and into parts of Washington state in the Cascades. In the Sierra Nevadas, we've got 2 counties in California where we have winter storm warnings and one with a winter weather advisory. Where did my satellite loop go? Oh, it disappeared. I got to bring it back. Hang on one second. There we go. I don't know what I did. I must have accidentally exited out. So here's what it looks like tonight. Uh, Again, you've got this, you know, the one thing that hasn't changed since yesterday, and it's probably not going to change much in the next couple of days, that swirl that you see in eastern Canada and over Atlantic Canada, that is this large storm system that just ain't going nowhere. And as a result, we keep getting these short waves, these streams, these troughs that are swinging around on the west side, bringing through areas of clouds from time to time. And as Joe pointed out, snow showers that have been occurring, and those extend back over into the Great Lakes. We've got a little bit of moisture setting up through Illinois and Missouri, and that's ahead of the energy that's now coming in to the West Coast. And that is the beginnings of the weather system that's going to be taking the dive down the Rockies and then start to generate snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain. And there might even be some severe weather with this across the South on Sunday.
Yeah, there could very well on the trailing cold front from this storm system. There could be certainly enough lifting and certainly enough moisture coming northward out of the Gulf of Mexico to supply the potency for some pretty good. Hey, look. If we were able to get rolling thunder and lots of it New Year's Eve here in the tri-state metropolitan area on New Year's Eve night, if we were able to do it, there's no question that we would very well be able to see, excuse me, some potential storm problems with this system south of the storm system as it moves eastward during Sunday and into Monday.
I just want to go through some tip jar hits really quick. Flood weather, uh, David Fuller, uh, Donald Colgan, and Gary Crosby all hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. And David said, "Will I be shoveling school Monday morning? My friends, I hope it's enough. It will be enough to close the schools." It's amazing. No matter what, everybody wants a school day. I mean, a snow day.
Yeah, I thought snow days were going to be passe. I mean, during the COVID-19 situation, a lot of classes were being held at home on computers, and I said, well, there you go. It's the end of snow day. I guess the teachers or the union doesn't want that to happen. And they said, hey, if there's a chance for everybody to get a day off, let them get a day off because of the weather.
Right. Radars tonight, busy on both coasts to some extent. And when I say coast, I mean, way up in northern New England and in eastern Canada. You could see the snows up the St. Lawrence River Valley, lake effect plumes. There's actually a fairly impressive one that's come off Lake Ontario into north central New York, just north of Syracuse, and then running along I-90 to just north of Albany. And that continues to move to the east southeast. There's another band in southwestern New York, not nearly as impressive. We've also got a little bit of patchy snow shower activity in central and southwest PA. Then we go back into Illinois and Indiana, where we've got some snow showers going on there, and even into southern Indiana and southern Illinois. A little area of flurry activity in East Kansas at the moment. And in the Pacific Northwest, this is, of course, as of 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time on this Thursday, the 2nd of January. We've got patches of rain coming into Northern California, into Oregon. It's snow in the mountains, and also into parts of Eastern Washington and Eastern Oregon. The Storm Prediction Center has no severe weather forecast the next three forecast periods, but on their day four, Joe. So this is for Sunday into Monday. They have
Right.
they have a implied slight risk 15% East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and southeastern Arkansas. I think they're going to wind up having to put that a little bit further east over time as this thing plays out. But the SPC is already on the case here. WPC, on the other hand, now This forecast was issued at 6 o'clock this evening. I don't know how much of the dayside guidance they look at when they come up with this stuff, but they've got no precip from Maine to about New York City and Long Island. They've got nothing in terms of liquid precip, nothing. Okay, a quarter of an inch runs up to across central New Jersey, south of Route 195, back to about Philadelphia. Then they've got a half an inch in southern New Jersey, southernmost New Jersey, northern Maryland, and then it goes to three-quarters of an inch. Now, this is all going to be from the weekend system. A little bit of that is coming tomorrow, but the 95 to 95% of it is really from the Sunday night, Monday the morning system. From Virginia West, you're looking at half to three-quarters. There's areas of an inch and a half. The West Virginia inch and a half plus is also including stuff that's falling tonight and tomorrow. But we've got back through Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, into Missouri, and extending into western Kentucky, a fairly large swath of the 1.5 inches of liquid, and you've got half to three-quarter inch amounts extending all the way down into Louisiana. Out in the northern Rockies, we're seeing um, three-quarters of an inch to some pockets of an inch and a half. And of course, in the Pacific Northwest, we're talking about several inches or so of precipitation, liquid precipitation, over the next 7 days. Now, let's look at the snow. Now, this is what the Weather Service forecast tonight in the winter storm watch area, Joe. A really wide swath here of, of 8 to 12 across northern Kansas. So this includes Kansas City and Topeka, southeastern Nebraska, which includes Lincoln, much of central and northern Missouri. St. Louis gets an 8, okay? And you can see the amounts actually sharply drop off as you go to the south of that. St. Louis gets 8. In Illinois, it's mostly central Illinois in the, let's call it 8 to 10, 6 to 10 maybe. There, and that extends into Indiana with Indianapolis in that 6 to 10 zone. You have lower amounts. This is through Sunday evening, so we're going to be adding amounts tomorrow in places like southern Ohio, northeastern Kentucky, into West Virginia. The West Virginia amounts being reflected here are mostly from the upper trough that's coming through tonight and Friday. You see the big amounts from the lake effect snows. These are additional snows on top of what's already fallen. So another couple of feet in southwestern New York. This has been like the bullseye zone this winter for where the lake effect is. This is since late November, the late November episode. Another additional couple of feet on top of what's already on the ground. And in north central New York, north of Syracuse, which by the way has a 22 on its back. Go up toward Pulaski and Jefferson County near Watertown, and you're looking at an area of 40 to 50 plus on top of what's already fallen. So some very impressive snow amounts from the lake effect, as well as the snow amounts being indicated from for the upcoming storm system.
And I was negligent here. I should have rung the bell a little earlier, but we're already up to 125 likes. And hey, somebody on the chat board said, let's try for 200. At this rate, we may very well do it. Cecilia Hernandez asking Joe, how come WPC has zero precipitation on their 7-day outlook for New York City? I mean, after all, if we're going to get some snow on Monday, how is that possible? And again, Cecilia, I will mention that there are a whole bunch of things that need to fall into place for us to even get that paltry inch. And I think, again, one of the things that I'll bring up now, but may be brought up again as we get closer to the event, is that initially the air may be very dry and may keep a lot of the significant snowfall from making it all the way down to the ground, at least in the New York metropolitan area. Point south of me, you want to see snow? I suggest you get in your car and travel south of maybe past I-78 if you really want to see enough snow to get out and get your shovel. Again, this could change, but Joe, I'm still not totally convinced that we're going to see much of anything from New York City on north, at least not just yet.
Well, there's going to be a sharp, no question. There's a sharp cutoff on the northern edge. There's no question.
There
There's
always is in this kind
there's
of a
always
pattern.
there always is, particularly in cases like this. You're going to go from nothing to a couple of inches over a handful of miles, and we're at the stage now where we're looking for really subtle shifts in in the model of 25 or 50 miles tops, and that could make a difference for somebody. I also want to point out, by the way, in that whole stretch from Kansas through Missouri, southern Illinois into Kentucky, there is going to be some sleet and freezing rain in this area. And we're talking about, in some places, a half an inch of ice accretion being forecast for areas. Just Kansas City is right on the northern edge of this. So, there might be a little bit of freezing rain maybe at the start, or some rain to freezing rain before it goes over to all snow. So they're only looking at about 600ths on the digital forecast. Topeka's got just under a quarter of an inch, but you go a little bit further south, and you're looking at some half-inch accretion amounts in areas across central east, the eastern part of Kansas, but like sort of right in the middle there, from north to south, and then cutting across the middle of Missouri and into southern Illinois and southern Indiana into Kentucky. So there's also going to be an ice issue here for this particular area as this all evolves, because cold air is there, but then you're going to have even colder air that's going to come in once the low develops. WPC on the probabilities for at least two, and you could see high probabilities. And of course, this only goes till Sunday evening, which is why you don't see much of anything closer to the coast. But you're seeing some 80 to 100% probabilities for at least two in this swath. This was updated at 3:46 p.m. Eastern time. So again, I don't know how much guidance they look at of the 12Z guidance that they get to look at when they put these things together. There always is a little bit of a lag time. And that, by the way, is probably why WPC's rainfall map, the liquid precip map, which they usually, the first one that says it's issued for 0Z. They actually post that map usually around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they may not have gotten the whole suite of the 12Z guidance. Certainly didn't see any of the 18Z. But here you go. You've got a fairly large swath here of 80 to 100%. If we go to a probability for at least four, you see areas in Kansas and into northwest Missouri, southeastern Nebraska, where the probabilities are high. 80% probabilities extended to central Illinois, and you're going to see those numbers go up. Now, in the long range, this one is updated at midnight and at noon. So there's nothing really new here. I can guarantee you the 12Z stuff was not much involved in this particular forecast. But this is for Sunday into Monday. That red area you see here is a 90 to 100% probability for at least three across central Missouri, Illinois. Um, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be clicking on these boxes like this. A 90% or greater probability in central and southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, northeast Kentucky, central West Virginia. The blue is 70 to 90%. So if you want to use my rule, which is, I use the 50% line usually as where I'm going to put my border for something. So if they're using three, um, I'm going to say four. So we'll use four. That whole area in any of the two shades of blue is fairly likely to see at least four. And maybe this area that you see in the red is probably likely to see maybe at least six or eight before it's all said and done. And this is through Sunday. This is through Monday morning. They have a 10 to 30% chance through central New Jersey, a 30 to 50% chance in southern New Jersey for at least three. And for places like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, a 50 to 70% chance for at least three. Now we move to the day side Monday, and this is where we see they have a patch of 30 to 50 in South Jersey, Delaware, northeastern Maryland, parts of southern Pennsylvania. The 10 to 30% for at least three goes up to western and central Long Island, to about New York City, to about Route 80 in New Jersey. But again, caution here because it's an old forecast based on old data, because that's how they work. I'll be curious to see what they do with this tomorrow morning, Joe.
Yes.
I said I would be curious to see what they do with that tomorrow morning.
Oh, I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to add something to that. I didn't know what. Yeah, sometimes you go into a long soliloquy, and I'm not sure exactly where I'm supposed to step in or step out.
You can step in anytime you want.
Yeah, but to me, it's if I interrupt while you're right in the middle of a sentence, I think that's you know because sometimes you're just rolling, so to speak.
Well, that's true. There's a lot to talk about here.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so what do you think of this upper air? Because this is, I think, where it's really important. You got the blocking low, the arm that comes back westward in Quebec, and then you got this short wave. And one of the things that's been going on today is that every run has been a little stronger with this short wave as it moves eastward. Um,
Well, it's going to continue if the trend is your friend, as many people like to make reference to in terms of weather. I mean, now that we're coming into that 72 to 84 hour period where there's more data set being fed into the computers with each run. If the trend is that it's moving further north, it may very well continue to do that as we move through the next 2 or 3 days. Every run may be a bit more exciting than the previous run, and so if that be the case, what looks to be right now to be a very light or a modest snow event for places from New York City on north may get a little bit more interesting in the next day or two or three, which is why we're going to be here tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday and who knows beyond that.
well,
We get.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, it's Monday night could be the post. It'd be nice to take off on Monday night, but how could we? Monday may be the post mortem, so to speak, to
Or the
see how
hanging.
to see how well we did or how much we busted.
Right.
Something unusual happened that we weren't anticipating or expecting. This is part of the game in terms of forecasting.
Right. You can. This particular setup in the upper air is interesting because we don't see it too often. You really get to see how a block works. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the Atlantic view because that, I think, gives you a really good feel for what we're dealing with here. Now, take a look. Take a look at Eastern Canada, folks. I mean, this complex that is sitting up in Eastern Canada is really impressive. As we get these arrows here, but look at this. This is like this giant upper low complex, and you've got this one sitting out south of Newfoundland. It's close to being what we call the 50-50 low. There's another one here in east of James Bay, and then you've got this is our shortwave. That's the one that's going to be causing this next storm system to develop. Now, I'm going to take, well, before I do that, the other thing I want to point out is right up through here is what we would normally refer to as the Greenland block. We have a big upper high that's sitting over southern Greenland right now that's just holding everything in place. Nothing that complex there in eastern Canada and over to Newfoundland can't move. So this low can't go that way. It cannot go to the Great Lakes. It can't go up the west side of the Appalachians. It's got only one place to go. And by the way, just think back about a week ago when we had models, even with this block, when Dave Tolerus was on, he pointed out that the models were trying to take a deepening primary low to Cleveland, and he pointed out that that was wrong, that the block was going to force it southward, and you can see how the mechanics work here. With the block spinning away, that upper low gets forced to the southeast. Now there's an arm that's coming down the west side in eastern Canada. You see it there down into the south of James Bay and moving southward. This is where the timing is so important because if that's a little weaker or a little slower, that's going to keep the shortwave to the south alive a lot longer. And that's one of the things the models have been doing today. It's showing a more vibrant shortwave, an upper low, holding on for much longer so that it gets close to the coast. Because once that northern shortwave gets involved, that system kind of gets squashed as it moves on out to the east northeast. So it's critical here in terms of the forecast that we get the timing right of all the mechanics. But this is really, it's kind of fascinating to see how blocks work and how how they cause weather systems to do what they do. Because we haven't seen a block like this in quite a few years.
Yeah, if there was a game show for meteorologists, the name of one of these game shows would be the game of splits and blocks, because that's basically what, especially in the wintertime, that's what makes the forecast so interesting and so challenging, is exactly the positioning of a particular block or a particular split flow as to what you're going to get in terms of precipitation. This is one of the this may be perhaps the first of many challenges. I said about a week ago that, to me, this impending pattern, or the winter as a whole, had the look of a winter more in terms of clippers, as opposed to the classic cases of storms coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and up along the eastern seaboard. That will have the blocks in place. You'll have these shots of very cold air. Case in point, the cold air that we had just prior to Christmas, when temperatures throughout the area were only in the teens and single digits. We may have, as we get deeper into the wintertime, another one of those types of cold spells coming up. I mean, I've been hearing, Joe, was watching a couple of the local newscasts here in New York tonight, and they're all saying the same thing. Ooh, it's going to get cold. Oh, and I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. Did you forget what we had 2 weeks ago? This is nothing coming our way compared to what we had when we had 2 weeks ago. Of course, 2 weeks ago we had the prime surge for a cold weather pattern, the straight north wind coming straight on down the Hudson and coming down from James Bay and points north. That's where we get our really cold air. And this cold is respectable, but it certainly is not to match what we had, about a week or 10 days ago. But we may see more of that in the coming days and weeks ahead. And again, cold air like that, and again, blocks like we have set up in eastern Canada right now, and short waves cutting across from the nation's midsection. All of these will make for a very challenging type of scenario or scenarios in the coming days and weeks here in the Northeast. Certainly, no matter what you think, all of you, especially on the chat board, and if not a few of you who are already throwing in the towel, may I remind you, just like a month ago, like, oh, here we go again. It's going to be another one of those winters, just like all the other. No, this winter certainly is evolving into quite a different ball game as compared to what we've had over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, no question, no question. And since I've got the map up, I just want to point out because it is becoming the topic of conversation for the system behind this for later next week across the deep south. And if we look at the upper air, I'm just going to roll this back. While this first storm system is moving east, and you see it there, we're looking at the 18,000-foot level. There is a trough, another shortwave trough that's coming in the Pacific Northwest and diving southward into the southwestern part of the United States, and eventually finds its way into Texas. So this is next Thursday and Friday. Next Thursday and Friday. And I mention this now because I know folks on the chat board, Jess Harden, has been, I think he put like 20 posts up there asking me to say something about this. The block is chiefly responsible for a pattern that's causing something like this to happen because it's forcing everything to take southern tracks. And it's also locking in cold air in areas that normally don't get sustained. They get cold, but it's not often sustained. Most of the time, it gets cold for a day or two, and then it warms up. You go from it's very here living in North Georgia. I've seen it so many times. I've gone from teens to 70 in a matter of 3 days. I mean, that's not uncommon That's not going to happen this time around. But that next shortwave is going to dive down into Texas. Now, assuming that there's some reality to this, because it's still, we're talking 8 or 9 days out, there's going to be plenty of cold air around. And I think it opens the door for the possibility of some snow in the deep south, but also what could be some significant ice storm across the northern areas of Mississippi into Alabama, Georgia, even western South Carolina. We're of course going to be talking about this more, but I usually have a rule which is, um, work on the first storm, and then you get to once that's played out, you start to deal with the second. But I realize that we have folks that watch from the south, and I want to give them a little bit of a heads up here. I mean, there is some support for something like this, but I think we're still in that point in the models where things get lost. So we'll just see what comes in the next few days. Here's the lead system. You've got the big high over Lake Winnipeg. We're not far from Lake Winnipeg. You have that block that's bringing colder air down through the Eastern Great Lakes in New England down to through the East Coast. And now here comes the low. You see it there in western Oklahoma. It just gets forced eastward because you've got the block to the east. You've got this big high coming down to the northwest. So it's got to just kind of find the path of least resistance, and that's just to go straight east. The track of the low is a little further north today than it was yesterday, now taking a primary into West Virginia as opposed to southwestern Virginia or western North Carolina. That's an important development. And with just causing some of these models to kind of push everything up a little bit further to the north. There'll be a secondary that'll form probably somewhere in northeastern North Carolina or southeastern Virginia, and then that's going to get squeezed out to the east. The precipitation will gradually end during the day on Monday. It'll move out. And then as we go in through later next week, you start to see the GFS generating a storm in the western Gulf, cold high pressure to the north, and that moisture moving into that cold air. So this again could be something significant for the deep south and southeast, but we're going to have to wait until sometime, maybe over the weekend, we might be able to put a better handle on that one.
Well,
So,
give me sharing capabilities, and I'll, to buttress your statement about that. I
yes,
want to
hold
show
on
you.
1 second here. I got to find you. There you go.
There I
Uh,
am. I'm waving.
oh, I got a notification this time that says you want me to that you want to share. So that
Well,
made my life easy.
I
Let
figured
me. I got to
I
just
figured
switch.
I'd make it easy on you. You know, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go
So,
ahead. I'm gonna just step away for a minute, but you go ahead. I can
all
hear you.
right. Okay. All right. Very good. So I'm going to show all of you. Joe was talking about the possibilities of maybe some wintry weather in the deep south. This is the Climate Prediction Center, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, and this is their one of their maps there. And again, they want to stress this with 3 stars on either side of the word experimental. Risk of heavy snow, valid from the 10th through the 16th of January. The 10th is a week from this Friday. So on January 10th, they have a slight risk for heavy snow. And take a look at the region that they're talking about, this slight risk. Southernmost sections of Virginia, all of North Carolina, practically all of South Carolina, the northern 2/3 of Georgia, eastern and south central sections of Tennessee. In fact, if I go further back here a little bit, that just jumped a bit. In fact, it looks like even most of Tennessee, save for the northwest area here. And take a look at this now. We have, of course, we have one of our folks on the chat board always saying, when are we going to get snow here in Alabama? Well, take a look. Most of Alabama, save for the far south, most of Mississippi, except again for the far southern sections near the Gulf Coast, and also northeastern Louisiana, and also the eastern 2/3 of Arkansas. All of these areas have been outlined for the possibility of at least a slight risk of heavy snow for January the 10th. There's the broader picture there. And in fact, this area here, which I think is mostly more along the lines of lake effect than anything synoptic, for western and central New York and western sections of Pennsylvania and right along the lake shore and portions of northeastern Ohio. This area here is probably more lake effect, slight risk for the 10th through the 14th of heavy snow there, but this area down here, almost like a finger, overlapping a portion of the northern limit or northern edge zone of this broad area that covers again the Piedmont and a portion or the swath of the deep south for heavy snow, a slight risk of heavy snow again January 10th. So, for all of you who live far to the south, and we spoke about this, we've been talking about this. I mentioned this about a week ago. I said all you need is a large dome of cold air, which is exactly what we're going to be seeing during the second week of January. All you need is a large cold dome of air over the eastern United States, and then you have maybe some kind of a disturbance. Doesn't have to be a major disturbance, just a slight disturbance coming out of the Gulf, coming up, not quite being strong enough to make it all the way north to, let's say, the mid-Atlantic, being well suppressed to the south, but enough cold air to allow for the precipitation to fall as snow or maybe snow and ice. And that may very well be the case when we get again to the end of next week. So something to see. So we've got three things actually to talk about. We have that minor wave of low pressure tomorrow, which will bring a touch of light snow to parts of Pennsylvania and South Jersey. Then you've got that system that's being ballyhooed left and right from the central part of the United States all the way up into maybe the tri-state New York City area for Monday. And after that's over said and done, a few days to catch our breath. And then maybe for you folks down south, way down south, something along the lines of a snow or snow and ice maker for a week from tomorrow and Friday, a week from tomorrow, Friday being the 10th of January. So lots to talk about. Lots to talk about. Much more active this January than the last 2 or 3 Januaries, where we had a lot of people on the chat board moaning and groaning and saying, when are we going to get cold air? When are we going to get a shot for maybe some snow or whatever like that? Certainly, this is one that we're going to be watching. Actually, 3 things we're going to be watching starting tomorrow and running right in through the end of next week.
191 likes so far, Joe. So if you like the show, hit the like button. If you like the European ensemble snow map, I'm going to put them up, okay? Because you only get that here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, Sunday through Thursday, and this week, including Friday and Saturday, by the way. So this is the latest European ensemble, and this is from Pivotal Weather, and we're seeing, actually, it matches up with the operational fairly closely. It gives about an inch and a half to New York City. You know, the 1 inch line goes to almost to your house, Joe. And then we've got just south of Route 78, you started to get to bands of 2 and 3 inches, 4.3 at Toms River, 4.6 for Philadelphia, 5.3 for Wilmington, 6.4 for Dover. I'm going to change this now and go to the Washington, D.C., Baltimore region. Again, this is the ensembles. So they're pretty impressive across the Mid-Atlantic. Baltimore 6.5, Washington 7.3, Annapolis 7.1, Centerville, Virginia 7.5, Winchester 7.9. I'm going to go a little further west.
200, Joe.
Oh, very nice. Less than 5, 5.5 in Charlottesville. It goes down obviously when you get into Southern Virginia, but I'm kind of intrigued with that, the area just to the west. So I'm going to bring up the regional shot here, because this way we can look at a larger swath all at once. And yeah, so there's that's in West Virginia where we're talking a foot plus, and some of that is what's going on tonight. But you can see the ensembles have a fairly large area of 6 to 8. It gets even into southern New Jersey and goes back, west across southern Ohio, northern Kentucky, central Indiana, central Illinois, and even further back west of there. So I'll give it one more, another region here to show you. And they're right into Missouri and into Kansas. So, very large east. This is like 1,500 miles long, an east-west line of area of heavy snow. That's the European ensemble. Since we're doing that, I might as well go to the GFS ensemble and see what that
And
looks
that,
like.
that by the way, that map, by the way, somebody on the chat board, Meatloaf A, uh, saying ratios, question mark, question mark, question mark.
You know what?
This is,
That's a good point, by the way, with the ratios. I want to be a little careful here because of the fact that you are going to have a lot of this is, even the areas in southeast Pennsylvania, interior areas of New Jersey. I think the ratios maybe like 12 instead of being 10-1, because these are all 10-1 ratios. A lot of these areas are going to wind up having ratios that are going to be much higher than that, like 12-1 or even 15-1. So got to be a little bit careful here. These are all 10-1 ratios that we're showing here on the maps. The GFS ensembles are actually quite impressive through Missouri. This is a 1 foot. This is all 1 foot plus across central Missouri, central Illinois, central Indiana, central Ohio, into southwestern PA. Again, we're talking, West Virginia. Some of that's going to be for tomorrow, and then extending down into western North Carolina. Oh, that's out to 364. I'm sorry. Let me run this back. I take it all back, folks. I thought this was only because the European only goes out to 144. So when I switched to the GEFs, it went out all the way to 364. So here you have. I stand corrected. But still impressive enough. We've got some areas of 12 plus, but certainly a large area of 8 to 10 in that east-west band from Kansas into western PA. I just want to clarify the the Mid-Atlantic. Let me just see if that's the only thing that it's showing in the Mid-Atlantic. And we'll go. All right, so yeah, I mean it's close, but yeah, these are it's mostly just one event here on the for the Mid Atlantic and into Southern New England, and that may or may not be right down in the long range, so we don't even know. But again, we do see some higher amounts in Northern Maryland, Southern Pennsylvania, and then um, the higher amounts you saw on the previous map included what was going on in the South, and you got to remember some of these areas don't see an inch of snow like they see it maybe once every 5 or 6 years the further south you go. So for these folks, and you may not be aware of this, but snow is an obsession here. Okay, it's not just snow lovers; it's everybody. They love it. I mean, they absolutely love it when it snows here in the deep south. It's a big deal, and people get really, really excited. They were already talking about it on the newscast tonight. And by the way, I thought of you today because the ABC affiliate here, Joe, that they do a 5 day forecast and only a 5 day forecast.
well, that's what they should be doing. That's what everybody should be doing because, especially in the wild and woolly winter where things can change very rapidly, going beyond 5 days, you're doing, I think, a disservice, and especially those stations that are doing 10-day outlooks. We have two of them up here in the New York City market that have 10-day forecasts, and I gotta, I wonder if somebody out there would like to take the 9 and 10 day 9 and day 10 and make a record and just see how accurate those 9 and 10 day outlooks are when you actually get to 9 and 10 days, especially again in the wintertime. It's very, very, it's probably the better thing to do is that whatever it says on day 10, go the opposite from what is
Right.
being cast or whatever.
Yeah, I know. Would it be on? I'm okay with 7, but yeah, beyond 7, it's like no, you're not doing. I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
want to once again, I just want to say thank you to Bogies Bees, Fled Weather, David Fuller, Don. We're not finished yet, by the way. Donald Colgan and Gary Crosby for hitting super chat. 222 likes tonight, which is really nice. So we appreciate the likes, folks. Do you have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I've been forgetting the last couple of nights, and I apologize to Scott, who is on vacation right now. So he sent us a Briller Jeopardy the other day, and I just been so hectic between the holidays, the weather that's been going on, and my head cold, which is now just about done, that I forgot to do Briller Jeopardy. So we were going to do it tonight. So everybody, get ready. You ready?
Yes, and here it is. On this Briller Jeopardy, the average annual snowfall. Now, I want to make sure that we haven't done this before. Just let me make sure here. No, I guess we have not. So, this is the average annual snowfall for the five following cities, starting with Atlanta. How much each winter does Atlanta see in terms of snow on average?
In Atlanta for the whole
Yes.
winter, 1 inch.
Yes. Well, if you double that, you're right.
Okay.
The answer for Atlanta is two, and a number of people came up with that. Frank Scalera came up with it. Frank R. Rich Rothmansky, Maggie P. and Mike Waterhouse. No, well, Mike Waterhouse Bonsai came up with three. But
Where,
anyway,
where I live in North Georgia, so the average snowfall at my elevation over the long term is for the winter is probably about 15, 16 inches. But you go to Brasstown Bald, which is Georgia's highest peak, and it's less than 10 minutes from my house because that's up at 4,800 feet. The average winter snowfall there is closer to 30, 35 or even 40.
wow,
So there you go.
there you go. How about Dallas, Texas?
Dallas.
Yes,
All right. Well, I said I'll say 2 inches. It's either one or two.
you got it, Joe.
Two
Two
for
inches,
Dallas.
two for Dallas, two for Atlanta, two for Dallas. How about Boston? There we go. That's a little bit different than either
I'm
Atlanta
sorry, and this is for the whole winter
for the whole winter.
for
Average
Boston.
annual snowfall
42.
for Boston.
Yeah.
A good guess, but not quite enough.
Ruben Fairchild says 44.
Still a good guess, but still not enough.
Tim Latex Dreams 45. Uh, Patrick Darcy at 50. William Uber at 48.
William, well, look at this. The 48 and 50 surrounding the actual number. So what
Well,
else could
let
it be?
well let me guess 49.
49. And don't forget, what year was it that Boston had like 103 inches? It was
Oh,
about,
wasn't that 20? He was either 2013, 14, or 14, 15. I forget it.
yeah, something like
Which
that.
one?
Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
How about Buffalo?
Buffalo average
Buffalo.
for the winter.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tough because Buffalo, there's the airport, then there's downtown. I'll say 76.
Well, not enough.
Not enough.
I'm
Miss Fa- Miss-
Lindy.
is it?
Lindy says 40 feet. By the way, but that's a
All
that's a
right,
bit
no.
too
Miss
much.
Fowlerite said 110. I think I lost it. I'm sorry.
Suzanne
Uh,
J. Angela says 80. Still not enough.
Lou Alessi says 90.
Still not enough.
All right. Well, Andy Johnson says 100.
Well, that's a little too much.
All right. Rich Rosmansky at 94.
Rich Wolfmansky would be in snake country with that, as is the
Uh,
case with Andy Johnson with 94.
okay, so it's either 95 or 93. So Mike McGuire said 95 and Shrubby said 93. Which one is it?
Mike McGuire's 95. There you go.
95. Chuck Cardillo also said 95.
All
And
right.
CWTR Sharp, 95. And Scalera, Mr. Scalera at 95.
How about
Ne-
the Windy City?
Chicago,
Chicago.
40,
Yes.
42.
A tad too much, Joe. Just a
Yeah,
tad too much.
just a smidge. I know they were about 10 inches over New York. I should have said 40.
Andy Johnson said 40. That would put him in snake country.
And Maggie P said 40. And Chuck Cardillo says 39.
Chuck, that bell is for you. You got it. 39 inches high average snowfall in Chicago. And now the bonus. The bonus city tonight is Montreal.
Ooh. God, I have no clue how to go with that one. Is it a 3-digit number?
No.
It's not. That was surprising. Um, oh, I would think it would be high. I was going to say 77.
Uh, yeah, that is high, but it's not high enough.
Okay. Um, Patrick Darcy said 80.
That's high too, but still not high enough. However, Gary Crosby and William Ubo, and Andy Johnson, 85.
And
85.
Michael McGuire and David Fuller,
Yes,
all at 85. Well,
yes.
okay. Well, you learn
And
something new every day here,
hopefully we'll make it to 85, Joe.
if only.
Yeah.
And if we do, we'll be celebrating it here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which will still be on from Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Okay, for the umpteenth time, we are going to be on tomorrow night. We are going to be on to Saturday, and we are going to be on Sunday, unless something radically changes. Okay, so we'll be here the
Do you,
next 3 nights,
do you
and
before we sign off, Phone King One wants to know. He said you never finished telling us the story about the baseball player who was rude to you.
oh, I'm not going to tell that story now.
Oh,
It's you know what? It's in the past. The guy's dead. Rest in peace. I can carry a grudge for the rest of my life. I'm still here. So, um, but I will just say that it involves the gas bag, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay.
all right. Good night,
All
everybody.
right.
We'll
So
see you again
everybody, don't
tomorrow.
forget tomorrow night, 7:35, Saturday. Well, Saturday. Is Jeopardy on Saturday at 7 o'clock that you can't get on at 7:30?
No, it's well. Sometimes they rerun. They'll show a rerun at 7 o'clock. But if you want me to be here at 7:30 on Saturday,
I
I will be
actually would
at
prefer it
7:30.
on Saturday if we moved it to 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay. Then we'll do it at
Okay.
7 o'clock.
I would rather do it at 7 o'clock because then this way, I kind of fade in the early evening hours. And of
Okay.
course, then after the show, of course, I'm all wound up. So I wind up staying awake for a little while. But
Yes.
let's do so 7 o'clock for Saturday. So we'll remind everybody regular time tomorrow, 7 o'clock Saturday, 7:30 on Sunday. Okay. So have a great night. Please stay safe, and we'll see what the weather gods bring us tomorrow when the next bottle cycle begins. Nighty night, everybody.
Good night, folks.